Indian art and its space in the world today. There are many things that India has exported, and many things have become beautiful hits. For example, Bollywood, yoga, Indian culture itself, Indian food, Indian cuisine. But Indian art is again something that has brought a lot of laurels, not just the artists but the pieces of art itself. But I'm here to talk to different people at an art exhibition in London on what art means to you personally, whether you perceive it as an investment because it is a lot of money, or whether you see it as a thing of beauty to be kept on your wall and never to be taken out, even in the worst time of crisis, and touch wood, hopefully that never comes to anybody. But what is it for you personally?
Well, art for me, I think, is it's a passion. You have to have a passion and you have to understand it. I love collecting art because I love the medium of expression, and also I think it's nice to have a collection which you can then, your generations, your children, your grandkids also then learn so much about the culture, about the time period of when the artist was there, what was the artist trying to signify, so it's a history, it's culture, it's a part of, life of that time. So I think it's, it's mixed all in one.
Okay, what is your view on it? Why would you buy something from here, for example, if you were to be? Would you buy it because it's silver? Would you buy it because it has a resale value?
For me, it's purely aesthetic. It's purely, I think art has to be very personal. I think something you have to be drawn to it, and it has to have a kind of a personal connection. The investment side, if that even enters your mind, I think comes later to anyone who's a true collector. There are certainly people who buy who have no interest and just want to, use it in the same way that they're buying stocks and shares. But for me personally, does this piece talk to me? Does it talk to me? Yes, there's a purely aesthetic element. Will this look good hung up in one of my walls? But it's more about having that connection and having that as a daily reminder when you see that piece that, the thing that has moved me still continues to move me.
So, which means you'd never sell anything that you've bought which talks to you in your home?
It's unlikely, I think.
Okay, and hope it remains that way. What does it mean to you?
Oh my goodness. I would say a lot of it does have to reflect skill, technique. Those are the things I look for, but also the history. As this lady was pointing out, it's from a particular period of time, it reflects upon that era, and those are the things which I enjoy. And when I look at art, it isn't for the value, it's really for the skill, what it says, how well it's assembled, the story behind it, how much thought went into this piece.
Right, how much thought a particular piece has meant. Before I talk about the history of it, what is one thing from your collection or from your family's collection that you will always cherish, and why would you talk about that particular thing here?
One piece of art that from my family's collection, we last summer were on a trip to Germany and purchased two portraits of a German royal family from the 1700s, and so that is something that I will always cherish because it was sort of something that we purchased during a trip, during a memory, and also just because of the time period, just because you have a piece of history and you have portraits of these people who actually lived, and you can sort of imagine them as they were at the time, and you have a piece of history, and that's something that's really valuable to me.
Sure, a piece of history, which is why it's valuable. Has Indian art been artificially priced during a period when people could have afforded it, and during a time when people had a lot of purchasing capacity?
I think that when India went through a very prosperous period, art market went through the roof.
Yes.
I think now the economic woes of India is reflecting in the price of art. And I think people who buy art for reselling, a lot of people buy art because they like it. Sometimes if you buy it at the peak price and you want to resell it to buy something else, it's quite difficult to do now. Radhika, don't you agree?
Yes, I think in India per se, the second-hand market exists, but it's not very buoyant.
It's not good. And so the thing
Unlike here, where there's the system of auction.
The auction houses here are actually at Christie's. I mean, they had remarkable sales of contemporary art in New York recently. I don't know if you went to that, but they had very good sales. But in India, I think the resale market is very bad. And of course, people do buy art to keep forever. But sometimes you buy art and you want to change it around. You might have a family heirloom forever. But what constitutes an heirloom, People want to sell art, and in India it's becoming increasingly difficult.
It is. Well, should that change in India?
Well, I think it'll change, but also you see, when people buy art in India, I think there has to go. You have to study about it. You have to, study, see a lot of works of the artist to understand, and then you have to pick up, a piece that actually is the artist in the best time frame or in the time period, or what really is the artist's, one of his best works, so to say. So a best work of an artist, there'll always be a market, but not necessarily for the mediocre works.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you know of people, since you mentioned that some people treat it like the stock market where quick sales and that sort of thing happens, do you know of somebody who really does it like shares, buys pieces of art, sells it back, makes a lot of money?
Makes a lot of money? I personally don't know many that have made money. I know lots that have lost money gambling on these things.
Okay, so not so much really like the stock market, not so much like
it's a waiting game. You buy it, you hold on to it. You look at families like the Wildensteins. They've been going since the 1830s. They've made themselves billionaires because successive generations have bought the pieces, they've held on to the pieces, but they've continued to exhibit the piece, write about the piece. They've kept the artist, his memory, his work alive. Whereas these short-term sales, they're bubbles, really. It does more damage than it does good. Damage to the artist and damage to the art market itself. It makes it look dodgy, quite frankly.
Thank you very much for this conversation, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you continue your collection, and I hope they continue to speak to you these words of inspiration just about at all times. Thank you very much. Write your feedback. OOE@ndtv.com is where you write to.